Your customers are not ready to purchase the first time they interact with your brand. I know a lot of us want this to be the fact, but this is not true for a lot of businesses, and conversions are rarely instant. A lot of entrepreneurs think that all it's going to take to convert on a sale is simply letting someone know that you exist. This leads them to chasing these one-time interactions and focusing on the results of these single assets. This is wrong, you guys. Unfortunately, it's going to take multiple interactions and multiple touch points before you can convert on a sale. And conversion is actually the last stage of a long buyer's journey that every customer takes. In this lesson, we're going to go over all of those different buyer stages, and we'll talk about specific strategy that your business can use to move customers through the conversion funnel. This is going to be a little bit longer than some of our other lessons, so grab a pen and let's dive in. Alright guys, we have made it into this lesson on the customer journey. This is going to be a very important lesson, which is why it's just this one lesson in this whole section. A lot of our future lessons will be built off of understanding the customer journey and understanding buyer stages and the conversion funnel. So please pay attention to this lesson. I know it might be a little longer than some of our other lessons, but it will all tie together and it will all make sense as we make it through this lesson. So, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about the customer journey, and we'll learn how your customers move from first contact with your brand all the way through making a conversion. We'll talk about the conversion funnel, and we'll talk about the different buyer stages for your customers. And then we'll talk about creating movement and how you can move customers from one buyer stage to the other. You know, I'm never going to leave you guys high and dry. So before we even start the lesson, let's take a second and talk about what is a conversion funnel. And now, a conversion funnel is a way to discuss or visualize the flow and conversion path of potential customers into paying customers. And these customers can be generated through a variety of different methods. We've talked about some of these methods in our previous lessons, and we'll continue to talk about methods of generating customers as we move through this course. One thing to remember about the conversion funnel is that there's a lot of different paths and flows your customers take. So a conversion funnel isn't one set thing for every business. It's going to be different for every campaign, every product, and every brand. Before we can talk about a conversion funnel and even making a purchase, let's talk about the journey that customers take, again, from first contact all the way through making that conversion. Before we get too deep into the customer journey, we have to talk about the idea of touch points. Every time a customer comes in contact with your brand, you have a chance to make a sale, whether it's the first time, the 5th time, the 30th time. But these interactions are known as touch points. This will make more sense as we get into some examples of the customer journey. Before I get into my examples, I bet you know a little bit more about the customer journey than you think you do. So how about you think about what are some of the ways that you can come up with of how a person can go from finding out about a brand to becoming a customer. Think about some of the ways that you have went from finding out about a brand new company to buying something. What did that journey look like for you? Here we have our first example, and this is going to be a very common customer journey for a lot of our businesses. We have someone initiating a Google search. It can be any kind of Google search, maybe for something like real estate agents near me, best clothing options, best summer dresses, or maybe they're searching for your brand name specifically. Whatever they searched for, they clicked on a result listing and they ended up on your website. From your website, they clicked around, they ended up on your product page, and from your product page, they made a conversion. This is a very simple customer journey. A lot of us have this flow built into our businesses. And if you don't, or you would like to take advantage of this, a couple of the assets you would need to make sure of is that you would have to have a high Google search presence. You would have to have a website that functioned, that led people with internal links to your product page. You would have to have a detailed product page that led people to conversion, and then obviously a conversionable action on your site. Let's take a look at another example that starts and ends the same way, but has a little bit of a difference in the middle. Here, again, we have a customer initiating a Google search, clicking on a search result, and ending up on your website. However, instead of immediately converting via your product page, they subscribe to your newsletter, maybe by your pop-up or through a form on your website. You emailed them some sort of coupon, and then they convert it from the email. This is also a common flow that a lot of us have built into our brands or have been converted off of as customers ourselves. If you would like to take advantage of something like this for your brand, again, making sure you have a high Google search presence, you have a good website, but now making sure that you have some sort of way for your customers to easily opt into your email campaigns, and then having automatic campaigns that send out things like abandoned cart emails or, hey, we haven't seen you in a long time emails. Let's take a look at an example that's completely different from both of these. Here we have a brand running Facebook ads. A customer sees that ad, they like what they see, and guess what? They convert immediately. Now, this is the ideal customer journey for any brand running ads on Facebook, but let me show you what's more likely to happen and what's a more likely customer journey for a Facebook ad campaign. A more likely customer journey on Facebook and Instagram is that your brand will be running paid social media ads. People will like it enough to follow your brand, and then you will target them with organic content until they like what they see enough to finally go ahead and make that purchase. You can see that although these customer journeys start and end the same way with Facebook ads to conversion, what makes the difference is the number of touch points in the middle. That can take a customer's journey from being instantaneous to being weeks or months long. Let's take a look at another example that's, again, a little bit different than both of these. Here's a common customer journey for people who sell service-based products. You have a person who's referred by a friend or maybe even a previous client of yours. That new person then goes, they check out your website, they fill out your lead gen form. From then, you initiate a consultation, maybe either by phone or virtually. And then from there, you sell your services and you convert on that purchase. This is something I use in my agency a lot. This is a common customer journey for a lot of my clients. If you wanted to take advantage of something like this, you would need to make sure that not only were you giving good service so that you can get those good referrals out of your personal channel, but that on your website, you had a clear place for people to make an appointment or fill out some sort of form to initiate that first consultation. That first consultation, the key is follow up quickly. Have something that is automated, that sends something to your guests that says they're confirmed for the consultation, or call them within 1 hour of booking. You never know if someone is putting out a lot of lead forms and just taking the first business from whoever calls them back first. Hopefully from my few examples and the ones that you could come up with on your own, you can start to understand that the combinations and paths customers can take to get to conversion are endless. However, many of their actions can be still mapped to a common flow. And this flow is known as the conversion funnel. We're going to dive into the conversion funnel and look at all of the different stages and things that make up the different parts of this conversion funnel. If you have never seen a conversion funnel before, here it is coming at you. The stages are going to be awareness, interest, consideration, and everyone's favorite, conversion. If you've been following along in the course, some of these words might sound familiar to you. I use the term brand awareness a lot. That could relate to awareness in the conversion funnel. We've talked about conversions in many different ways, converting on a campaign goal, as well as converting on a purchase. For these reasons, the conversion funnel can be a little tricky for people who are unfamiliar with it. So let's take a look at each of the stages individually, and then we'll go back and look at how these stages relate to our previous examples. Kicking it off with the awareness stage. This is the first stage in the conversion funnel, and this is where people are just starting to learn about your business or a specific product. They may not have formed an opinion about your brand or the products yet, and this is considered a cold audience. I've used the term cold audience before in some of the previous lessons, and it just means people who have no idea who you are. They're completely cold to your brand, and you need to start doing work to let them know who you are and what it is that you do. Once awareness is generated, buyers move into the interest stage. This is where they learn more about your company, its products, and any helpful information. However, a key thing to remember here is that buyers are still not prepared to make a purchase in this stage. The next stage would be consideration, and this is where the potential buyers consider your products or services as a potential and viable option to solve the problems that you help them identify in your awareness stage. So if you're saying, hey, our company can help you grow your hair back, this is where they're considering using you to help them grow their hair back. And buyers usually spend the most amount of time in this stage. The interest stage is very short and can sometimes be lumped in with awareness or consideration, but the consideration stage is where your campaigns are made or broken. I almost don't need to go over this. This is conversion. This is everyone's favorite stage. This is where a buyer takes the action to purchase your product or service. It's that simple. They give you the money, you walk away with a smile on your face. Let's take a look at some of our previous customer journeys and see if we can map our customer journeys to buyer stages in the conversion funnel. If you remember our first example, we had someone who did a Google search, ended up on your website, product page, and then made a purchase. Well, if we think about it, when they started that Google search, they were in the awareness stage, and they might have even been a cold audience if they were searching for something like best dresses near me or top 10 toys to buy for your kid. Once they clicked on your website, they became interested in your product and your brand specifically. And then furthermore, once they started looking around on your product page and seeing if your products can actually be a viable option for them, they were considering purchasing from you until they became a conversion. Let's take a look at our ideal Facebook situation, which was an instant conversion off of a Facebook ad. Well, you might be asking, with only 2 touch points here, what happens to the rest of the stages in the buyer journey? Well, you can see awareness and consideration kind of happened at the same time, and there was no interest stage. They saw what you posted, they immediately considered buying it, and then guess what? They did. So you can see not every customer journey has 4 distinct buyer stages, and sometimes the buyer stages happen at the same time. Let's take a look at our other Facebook ad example and see what happens when we add in an organic touch point in the middle. You can see the customer still started out in awareness, but instead of going to consideration from the Facebook ad, they were just a little interested, which is why they decided to follow you, and then they stayed in consideration for as long as it took until they made a purchase, and then they went into conversion. You guys remember our customer journey example for a service-based business. In this example, the awareness would have started as soon as the person was referred by a friend, and they would have entered the interest stage once they went to your website and looked around. Consideration started once they filled out that form. You always know someone's in a consideration phase if they fill out your form, because no one is exchanging information unless they seriously are considering what they're going to get on the other end of that. Your consultation was still a consideration because you had to do more selling and more talking to them to see if you might be a good fit to fill their needs. And then once they made that purchase, they went into conversion. I hope that you guys are starting to get familiar with the conversion funnel and mapping out what buyer stage your customer may be in based off their actions and touch points. But before we move out of this section, I want to give you one more stage of a buyer journey. This is extra credit, and this is going to be retention. This happens after you convert your buyer to make a purchase, and it's important to have systems in place that put these people back into the funnel at the consideration stage. A little asterisk there is putting them back at the awareness stage if you're going to be launching a new product. However, no matter where you drop them back off in the conversion funnel, make sure that this is not a one-way conversion funnel and that you're doing your best to return customers back into your brand. I want you guys to consider this. It is 5 to 25 times cheaper to convert on a previous customer than to attain a new one. And some businesses have a really high customer acquisition cost. So imagine how much money you could be saving by having good retention systems built into your brand. The conversion funnel does not stop at conversion. Retention is the name of the game, and get those return customers. Now that we've figured out what the customer journey is and how to tie some of those touch points to different buyer stages, it's going to be important for us to start to figure out how we can start moving people through the conversion funnel and from one buyer stage to the next. Something you may have noticed from our previous examples or even noticed in your own business is that some conversions happen quickly and have short flows. Other times, a more drawn-out customer journey with more touch points is required to make a conversion. In these instances, it's going to be important to ensure that you have systems in place to create movement through the conversion funnel. And that brings us up to a class activity where I want you to pause the video for a second and think of 2 ways potential customers can move from each stage of the conversion funnel. So how can someone maybe move from awareness to interest? How can someone move from interest to consideration? From consideration to conversion? And for extra credit, how can someone move from conversion into retention? Pause the video. I'm going to have my examples on the other side, and I'll see you there. Okay, I hope you guys have your examples. Let's take a deep look at creating movement through each stage in these journeys. Starting off with moving from awareness to the interest stage. When doing this, it's going to be important to capture your buyer's attention quickly at this stage. Remember, nowadays we have 1 second or less than 1 second to capture our customer's attention. So make a personal connection to your brand by focusing on the problems your brand can solve for the buyer. Make it about the buyer and not about your brand. If you make it about them, they're more likely to pay attention very quickly. A couple of things that you might want to try is making your branding stand out. Make it obvious that it's your brand who's posting the information. Have a wide online presence. Don't just be in one place. Remember, brand awareness is about casting a very wide net and then filtering down from there. Focus on educating your audience. Remember, tell them what problems your brand solves. Having a robust about page lets people know more about you, but also when it comes to SEO, about pages rank really high and get a lot of clicks. And remember, clicks take people from awareness into interest. And lastly, encourage people to click more on their ads because, again, clicks take people from awareness to interest. When it comes down to moving people from interest into consideration, I want you to remember that this is going to be one of the fastest transitions in the conversion funnel. And many times the customers may jump straight to consideration, or other times the interest and the brand awareness happen at the same time. To move to consideration, start to focus on your individual products and services. You might want to try some things like displaying product features and callouts, drive traffic to your social media where you may talk more about your products and services, encourage people to sign up to your email list where, again, you can talk more to them about your products and services via email. You want to try collaborating with brands that your buyer trusts. If they trust that brand, they're likely to trust you, and conversions are built off of trust. And you want to start having a high search presence. People trust Google, so if Google trusts you, people trust you. Now, when it comes from moving to consideration to conversion, this is probably where a lot of you guys wanted me to jump straight into for this lesson, and where a lot of you guys are like, Angelo, how do I make the money? Before we get to making the money, I want you guys to remember that potential buyers usually spend the most amount of time in this phase, and it can take multiple touch points across multiple channels to convert a buyer. I do not want you to give up, and I don't want you to think that something doesn't work because your consideration tactics are not leading to conversion. A lot of times it just means you need more tactics and to get people in more different ways. If you're not converting on social media, try getting their email addresses and then converting them on email. If you're not converting on email, it doesn't mean that email doesn't work. It may mean you need to send your emails at a different time, more emails, different kinds of emails. Don't give up. But also try a couple of these things. Try having a strong product service page. Put as much detail about your products as you can on your website. Try running retargeting ads to people who have visited your website or interacted with your brand before. You can run retargeting ads on Facebook, but you could also run them on Google with search and display advertising. You can try a first-time discount. People love these things, and it may swing someone who's on the fence about trying your brand for the first time. If you run an e-commerce store, I highly suggest you send abandoned cart emails. These things work really well and even can work in conjunction with a first-time discount. And I mentioned this earlier in my service-based example, but please call or email people who fill out your lead gen forms immediately, or have an automated system that checks in with them. Again, you never know if people are filling out multiple lead gen forms, and you don't want someone to get business just because they contacted someone before you. Now, for that extra credit, moving from conversion to retention, I want you to never, ever, 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 ever forget about your buyer after they've made a purchase. Follow up with them throughout and after their purchase to make sure they come back again. Throughout the purchase, yes, I said that. That's things like sending them their tracking emails, sending them a thank you email, letting them know if you have an elongated buying process, every step along the way. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. And then afterwards, I want you to contact them again and ask them how their service went, ask them for a review, and ask them if you can do anything else to make the buying process easier. That is going to make sure they come back, tell a friend, and spread the word about your business. Also, I want you to try a couple of these things. I want you to try cross-selling products that they may need. Now, this is going to help your business, but if it really helps your customer, they're going to appreciate you giving them more things to make their life easier and better. I want you to send them regular email newsletter updates so they can keep informed about your brand even after they've made their purchase. I want you to encourage them to follow you on social media. That way they can be back in the consideration phase every time they see your post. If it works for your brand, I want you to try having a loyalty program for repeat customers. This makes people feel rewarded for shopping your brand and makes them shop more often. And no matter what, I want you to create a community around your brand. This is going to ensure that people are not only there to purchase something from you, but also to gain something that makes their life better, easier. They're going to gain friends, and they're going to talk about your product with people who are just like them. And just like that, we've made it through a very important lesson. Today, we started exploring the customer journey, we discussed buyer stages in the conversion funnel, and we began a discussion on how we can create movement through the conversion funnel. Now, this is not the last time that you'll see these 3 topics. In fact, the entire rest of our course deals with things like the conversion funnel. And as we move on, we'll start talking about specific tactics and strategies that we can use to move these people from awareness to conversion. So, as always, I hope that you learned something, I hope that you had fun, and I hope I see you for our next lesson, which we'll start learning how to make marketing plans for your business, and we'll be kicking it off with competitive analysis. I'll see you there.